Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack for Business podcast.
So, from an audience perspective, you're not a tech person, and if you are, even so, listen. So, how do you upgrade to Windows 11 and start using AI in your business without breaking everything or wasting money? In this episode, our guest will share how to make the shift from Windows 10. Now, if it's an earlier edition, there's a little bit more love involved, but typically from a Windows 10 platform to Windows 11, the smart, low stress way, including what to do, what to avoid, and how AI enabled PCs can actually make work easier for small business owners who aren't tech savvy. Which brings me to our guest, who is Josh Lamb from Sterling Grace Technologies. He's the founder and president of that company, which is based in Brockville, and they provide a managed IT support and software development firm. He began his career at RipNet, where he sharpened his skills in CRM and billing systems, web development, and software integration before taking Sterling Grace full-time in 2013. Josh focuses on building reliable tech solutions that solve real operational challenges for Ontario businesses and support their growth. When he's not leading his team, you'll likely find him playing guitar or at a splash pad with his wife, Tabitha, and their 4 kids. Josh is also a returning guest from Season 1 and Season 2. Josh, absolute pleasure having you back here. It's great to hear you and see you. Do you have a favorite quote or saying, sir?
Basically, if you're not using IT or if you're not using AI, your competitors sure are. So you better get with the program.
So, we've had many chats in the past, and I know you keep things simplified. In other words, you can do the technical terms, and almost right down to the level of physics where the atoms are bouncing around, but you keep it in plain English. So, from a Windows 11, I know it's another iteration, but why? Why do we go from Windows 10 to Windows 11? What's the big shift? Why did Microsoft do this, or what do you understand about it?
Sure. So, I mean, that's a layered question. And Windows 11 is kind of the natural progression from Windows 10. It shares a lot of look and feel with Windows 10, but it's being retooled towards the AI ecosystem. So Microsoft has a big share in OpenAI, and they've used their AI investment to build out their own AI ecosystem, which includes their Copilot product. And so basically they are moving towards using Windows 11 as a platform from which people will be moved into this AI ecosystem. And so there are a number of reasons under the hood why you should move from one to the other. I think that the foremost one is whether you like it or not, you have to, because Microsoft has EOL'd, that's brought the software to the end of life for Windows 10. Effective October 14th of last month, so 2025 this year, basically they have EOL'd the whole product. And so the guidance has been that you must upgrade your operating system or you must get extended security updates enrollment, which is a program that they've released for people who are not quite ready to move to 11 yet. It's a paid program for a lot of people, although the rules on that are all over the map. So like in the European Union, for example, it's free. Enterprise users, the pricing and structure and the way that that's rolled out is a little different than for the business pro and the home users, who it's more based on their 365, like their Microsoft accounts, basically. And there are varying price profiles depending on the country you live in. For us, for enterprise, we're looking at something like it's close to $90 for a 1-year subscription. And so, I mean, that's sometimes the reason for moving Windows versions is basically because Microsoft tells you to. So I personally really liked the Windows 10 operating system. I would still like to use it on some old computers if I had the choice, although I've been using Windows 11 since it came out, and it's a great operating system too. As far as the rationale of what the real features are and the reason for this move being a little bit more contentious than past ones, AI and security are the 2 answers to that question. And again, lots of layers to that. From a security perspective for business users, Microsoft is really pushing hard on the idea of having encryption inherent in your hard drive. So you start up your computer, you don't even know that your drive is encrypted. It just works. But there's a little chip called a TPM, that's a trusted platform module, that I'm sure some people have heard about. It's still one of those kind of esoteric terms that not a lot of people know about, but it's basically a little chip that used to be very common in only corporate grade, talking servers, those types of computers. And they've started moving towards having them in your computer. And to make a complicated concept simplified, basically it just holds encryption keys. So they're gigantic passwords that are longer than any human could possibly remember, and they're used as like a cipher for encryption. And so, if you had, as a kid, you might have created codes with your friends and you have like a mapping of letter A goes to letter Z and so on and so forth. And then you create these kind of coded stories and you can pass notes back and forth. And if the teacher grabs it from you, too bad, teacher, you can't read this without my secret cipher. And usually those were pretty easy to decrypt because it's one letter to one letter. And so these kids thought that they were super smart. And then the teacher's like, I see this one. This Z is the most common. That's probably E. And then they all have this look of shock on their face, right? Well, we're talking, 2048, 4,000 and longer ciphers where they run this thing through this encryption mapping, and you end up with this extremely good encryption, industry standard encryption. And so that lives in this little chip, the cipher that helps you translate back and forth. And then through that cipher, everything that you save or load gets encrypted or decrypted. And so the takeaway there is it just works and it looks like normal usage for most users. But if someone were to be able to steal your drive, like basically physically extract it from your computer and run away with it, or if someone doesn't know your password and is not able to get in and they want to try and use hacking tools, and they're not all malicious. Some of them are utility tools that Windows themselves have published to let you basically get around passwords and get into an operating system. A lot of those rely on the idea that when your disk is in cold storage, it's inert and there's no real password blocking or security features there. You can just read the files. You can edit the administrator password without doing much if you have an unencrypted hard drive. There's a utility that we use to help people recover when they've forgotten their administrative passwords. And so all of this being said, now we have these TPM modules, and then you have things like Windows BitLocker, which is another common product. And that's basically what it does. It takes these security ciphers that are stored on this TPM and encrypts and decrypts. And so this is the way that security is going for business. And a lot of older devices don't have TPMs on board. And so Windows 11 has made it a hard requirement that you're supposed to have it. And so that's one of the security implications. And then just some of the older processors, they're not supporting it either. And so they have different chipsets that are not working with modern versions of Windows code. And then the other side of that, so that's the security side, right? And then the other side of that is the AI enablement. And the other side of that is you're seeing a lot of computers coming out with what's called an NPU, which is a neural processing unit, which is a specialized chip that's been added to a lot of hardware that's been released in the last year or two that has a special AI specific workflow built into it. And so you see these things labeled as Windows/Copilot Plus enabled, and that's basically what it means. So they're planning some advanced AI integration features with your everyday computer usage that need these neural processing units in order to fully function. And they require Windows 11 for that to be usable. So, yeah.
So you mean I have to upgrade from Win95?
I mean, you don't have to do anything, right? But if you are happy to be part of China's botnet with your Windows 95 computer, I mean, somebody's got to be part of the botnet, right? So good for you, Wayne.
I actually have heard a legitimate question, and the short answer is call Josh. But all my legacy software works on 98 on whatever, and like it runs my entire company. What do I do?
Well, I mean, the unfortunate reality of computers in business, and a lot of business people come at their technology from I'm a personal user who never wants to have to invest in my technology after I spend once. To me, that's an attitude that needs to evolve as you evolve as a business person. It becomes just like investing in insurance, investing in team growth. It's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. And so In the same way that if you expect that you're going to grow your team and grow their skill set, but you're never going to invest in training them, all that they're really going to get, all that you're really going to get is what you originally hired plus their experience in the day to day. They're not going to learn anything out of the box that they can bring thinking out of the box style concepts back to your business without doing some investment. Computers and the Microsoft ecosystem are very much in that boat. And so, yeah, we see a lot of legacy software. And what you end up seeing is you've got this software that's built and it works for Windows 7, and Windows 7 end of life years ago. And it runs major parts of the business. And so for us, this is a security no-no, but sometimes we have to deal with that reality. It's just like the business ceases to exist, and there's sometimes no clean migration path, or there is, but it would require transformative changes at the business that would cost more than the business can shoulder. And so the right answer is planning ahead. If you have custom software, making sure that it has a development cycle that takes into account the fact that the libraries that it's built on, the operating systems that it's built on, Windows or the component parts that are part of the program, they're going to age out. They're going to stop being supported as other software factories go defunct, or as Windows moves on, Microsoft moves on, and they don't want to support their aging software. The wrong answer, but the practical answer, is unfortunately that we have to get into those machines. We have to lock them down, sometimes put them behind proxies and other security measures so that they can't touch the internet, but that the other computers in the office can still see them and then can still access them. And we do have some clients like that who have Windows 7 machines, virtual machines. They're sitting on a server somewhere, and they're locked down as far as we can lock them down. There's no path to them from the outside internet, and basically every access that hits that server is controlled through a proxy, through a firewall. And that's, that is the unfortunate reality that a lot of businesses exist with. And it's you're playing with fire, because if someone who is whitelisted to access those machines hits those machines and they've been compromised, that machine gets compromised super easily. And actually, it's more common to see somebody accesses a desktop and then uses an irresponsible browsing behavior. So they go to download a program or something, they misunderstand what they're downloading, and they download a virus by accident. There's zero levels of protection and lots of ways for that to circumvent protections on Windows 7, Windows XP, Windows 98 and 95. If I haven't seen either of those in my, in years and years and years. So, but XP to a small extent, and still Windows 7. And yeah, so they do normal user behaviors that they don't realize are somewhat risky, and normally they wouldn't be a problem on a Windows 10, Windows 11, the most recent operating systems with proper antivirus. But on those machines, they exploit vulnerabilities that have long since been patched. And then you have an infection vector for your whole network. And so you've got one machine that is compromised that is now able to be harnessed by bad external actors and can then attack whatever is open in the rest of your network. And so it's kind of a dangerous game, but it's a game that some businesses are forced to play.
AI. I understand it for the encryption piece, and keeping, I guess, the computer running smoother. When a computer gets sold to you and it says, "Oh, it's AI ready," what does that mean? Does that mean that it has a couple more spinning wheels, a fidget spinner, and that and you add the AI fidget, or does it mean that it operates the machine better? Does that mean that it does other transactions quicker and it's already pre-built AI? Or is it AI that's you mentioned Copilot, I get that, but if you're not using a Microsoft paid platform, but you have a AI ready computer, does that mean then if you go to one of the other AI platforms, it works better with it? What's the scoop on that?
So I mean, it's an evolving ecosystem, but generally, when you see AI enabled machine on a new laptop you're purchasing, for example, it usually means that Copilot Plus label is on it. It usually means it comes with that neural processing unit I mentioned before, which is a processor that is part of your machine that is dedicated to AI specific logic tasks and makes AI crunching large data sets and predicting behaviors and that kind of stuff possible for Copilot. When you're using, so right now, Windows just released version 25 H2. So they have an annual release. H2 means the second half of 2025. 25 H2 release basically had no features built into it. So it's kind of like it's to get all your 24 H2 stuff included and essentially get a new label on your machine and get your machine eligible for us to start installing features later. And so those features have been largely previewed to be AI related, and most of that is built into the Copilot ecosystem. So if you're using the other platforms, we're heavy users of ChatGPT and OpenAI platforms here. And I know that there's got Claude and you've got Gemini and a couple other really viable alternatives. And those are mostly web-based. Some of them do have desktop clients, but they are not, I don't think they're really affected by this because the processing is happening on the remote server. So they're happening, you're communicating with these chat tools, and then they are doing all the number crunching, the processing, and the response generation on their infrastructure. And so Microsoft is looking to decentralize that and bring your own little AI context universe to your infrastructure. And so that's what these NPUs are for. They're to basically enable some degree of AI logic processing on your local machine with your private data in a way that it doesn't have to leave your machine ever. So there's a privacy concern there, obviously, and they're trying to address that because when you're using tools like OpenAI, right now the kind of standard logic, and I'm not really aware of any major breaches, but that might be for lack of research. Maybe there have been some, but the general best practice is if you're going to disclose sensitive information, to wipe anything that's identifiable from it, because there's a chance that their models will incorporate and absorb this and that it might lead to some kind of security breach. And Microsoft is trying to get around that by having local processing, local storage only of their model data. And so this 25H2 release that came out, the roadmap is that they're going to start releasing AI enhancement with each subsequent feature release that comes out for 25H2 as they go forward. So right now it's not a huge impact, and you're still feeling the effects of Copilot, which has been introduced for a while now, and it can help you do some basic things. But they're talking about implementing features like recall for one of them that will remember everything that you've done on your machine and be able to kind of understand what you were doing on X date. And if you did something rare on that date and you'd like to redo that thing, but you don't remember how you did it, well, this thing will know how you did it and be able to, that's what the purpose of recall is to essentially build memory so that it can help you re-execute things and remember things that you don't remember easily on your own. And another aspect of that would be, image editing. So they're talking about having improvements in their management software for images that would allow you to easily remove unwanted objects, for example. So it's like, I've got a wall in the background and there's a painting on the wall that I didn't realize was there, and it's a little bit unprofessional and I want to remove that. And it will just be able to do that and basically make it look like the picture never had the painting in it, and that it's still a cohesive photo. And so little things like that. And yeah, they've got a really interesting roadmap. I'm interested to see how that moves forward, given we've already got a substantial AI investment ourselves. So yeah, it's very interesting to see what's going to happen.
Josh, I met you just at the beginning of the pandemic, and a lot of people were locked out of their office, and they were bringing, they're all of a sudden loading their accounting in their daughter Jenny's laptop, and you go, no, don't do that. Has that worked through? Do people know that a business laptop and a family laptop are actually two laptops now, or are they still making that error?
I mean, it really depends. I don't think that error is ever going to go away. There's, every business that starts up, there's a period where you're still, you're trying to make that transition from consumer mindset to business mindset. And I mean, it's not a criticism of that mindset, because I mean, you have to learn what you have to learn. And there's a path between where you are with no customers, no business, no product base, no service base, no documentation, no billing, none of that stuff, all the things that you need to establish so that you can make a business, no sales and advertising. Between that and getting to an established business where you can start to scale and where you build trust. And, all of these things are processes and learning. And one of those things is learning how to run your business thinking in terms of a business instead of a consumer. And so, the idea that a Windows Home is good enough for me and I don't want to invest in any hardware. I've got a gaming PC that my teenage son uses with his Netflix and his BitTorrent, which is still a thing for some people. And I will use this for my business, and we all use a single user account. So it's like my data is visible to my whole family, including all of their browsing habits and their usage habits. And then getting towards a more secured perspective where, you either have them separated, or in our preference is to see that there's some kind of security suite installed on them, and that if you have an office with multiple users and a network, that you have a security policy that any computer that connects to that network needs to have the right sets of software installed and some automation around that. And then Windows Pro instead of Windows Home, which enables things like the BitLocker encrypted hard drives for security purposes we talked about earlier. And, it gets harder for the teenage son, even using that same computer. And we don't recommend that. But if you were to transform your home computer into a business computer and just have the one, and your teenage son or daughter are still using them, when best practices are employed, yeah, maybe they get into BitLocker stuff and maybe they're playing a lot of online gaming and stuff like that. But if they want to make changes to it, they don't have administrative rights to do that, because you've taken the step of securing things and not having full admin permissions for every person that comes into contact with your device. And you've separated the user account so that your data is not visible to the other users that log onto your machine. Right. And so it's changing these mentalities, right from the idea of like, I don't want a password. I just want to click or press the power button and log right into Windows and start using it. And passwords are frustrating and restrictive. And it's like, they are more frustrating and restrictive than just starting up and using a computer. But it comes back to that counterbalance. This maybe is my favorite quote, Bernie, of the, security and convenience are often foes, and you can have more security and usually it comes with less convenience, or you can have more convenience and almost always it comes with less security. And so there's a constant balancing act there to figure out what you're willing to live with your inconveniences to make sure that you have secured your business the right way. So yeah, it's a change in mindset, and there definitely the investment in a trusted technical partner and getting training for what those best practices are, even if you don't end up getting a full scale MSP like what we offer. There's a company in Brockville called Tech Tutors that I'm friends with the owners, and they're a great company for educating people who come in completely green. They give you they'll teach you how to use your computer and how to get a lot out of it, but they'll also teach you why different practices are not good to use when you're trying to make sure that you keep your data secure. And yeah, it's definitely a mindset thing that it'll never go away. No matter how good the information is out there, there's going to be people who just aren't interested in tech news, and they don't understand the technology. And that's why companies like us exist, to help those people, because they do understand what they're doing, right? Like the guy who runs this major construction company, and he knows construction, he knows architecture, he knows how to manage crews. He doesn't get tech. And so, skilled, brilliant guy, but he needs help, and all of us need help. And that's one of the big learnings with business too, is you can't do everything on your own.
My brother one day looked at me. This is about a decade ago. Says, Bernie, why can't I just come up to the computer and just turn it on? And he gets the password, but everything else afterwards. Well, you have to understand this. You have to understand that. You have to know this. You have to have the antivirus running. In the background. Other things. It's kind of like a maintenance, almost like running a car. He says, why can't you just turn the dang thing on and that's it? It'll sort itself out. Will this AI component then carry the weight of that? Here are the things behind the scenes, kind of tweak the system to optimize it. If you're in harm's way, let's say, much like a lane assist on a car, all of a sudden you get this vibration in the steering wheel and goes, oh, you're too close to the line. Is that what it's going to do as well as optimize?
Yeah, I think so. I think that their eventual goal, like those couple of examples that I shared, this image recognition and some customization of images, as well as the recall of the history. That's just kind of scraping the surface. They're looking to build something that's going to be contextually aware of you and how you operate, to see what your intention is ahead of time, so that they can kind of say, hey, is this what you're trying to do? You did something like this previously, and do you want me to kind of spin it up for you, and then you can save some steps? And yeah, to be able to monitor the health of your operating system and security best practices, and to kind of give you an overview of what you need to do that you're not doing. Those are all, I think that they're part of the roadmap and the intentionality of what the Copilot future plan is for their AI. So yeah, I think that it'll be helpful. I think that, again, there's going to be a counterbalance of, like, a lot of this information is available now, and it's not as consolidated as it could be. And so that's a major reason why people find it difficult to keep track of these things. But I mean, we see a lot of users with the pop-up showed up again saying my Windows is not supported and I need to do something about it. And I just X'd it out. And can you make that go away? You know? And and like my Norton is telling me, it keeps popping up with this red thing, and I just keep clicking the X because it's annoying to see this red thing, and I don't like red things. And their subscription expired 6 months ago, and they haven't
Or
gotten
2 years.
subscriptions. Well, yeah, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to this imaginary person of mine, right? But yeah, that's real too. And so there's only so much that you can say to a person who doesn't want to listen. And again, that's some people, they're intimidated by their technology and they need help. And I don't know that that's going to go away, because we see some degree of reporting that's created with AI that sends automated reports to our users, and it tells them things, but they know that this is an automated report. And so they're like, this isn't a human that's going to apply pressure to me, elicit my anxiety, and force me into doing something. So I can ignore this because I have 50 other priorities that are from living, breathing humans that are eliciting anxiety. And it's funny how I think that's an interesting commentary on how anxiety driven the human brain is. Like we have these plans in the back of our mind, and there's some, pressure of deadlines in those. And then we have the people who are asking us for things every day who get upset if they don't hear back. And that is how our brain kind of creates its priority models at its easiest without some more proactive planning. And, you see that everywhere. And so having somebody like us engaged to monitor these things so you don't have to, takes that load off of people, because it's one of those things where it's like, I can deal with this next week. And then, as Wayne said, you're 2 years from now, I don't know what this red alert means. I don't want to deal with it. And they finally say, this has been annoying me and it's creating this back end anxiety in the back of my mind. SGT or Staples or Tech Tutors or whoever their chosen tech partner is going to be. What does this mean? And can you make it go away? And so it'll be interesting to see how people interact with these new agent-based workflows and the way that Copilot is going to transform their experience. It'll be interesting to see if Microsoft takes some of their agency away and just basically says to them, hey, I know how to make sure that your PC is properly kept. I've assessed these, 12 different things. You don't have to read them at all. You just need to know that this is going to cost you $150 to get all your licenses that we think you need for all your things. And then rather than giving them the agency to choose to invest in their Norton subscription renewal, it'll just do it for them. And I can see that happening too. I think that that's further away. And I think that there's a barrier of trust that still needs to be established. But, it'll be a generational thing and an experience thing. Once this becomes, I think Microsoft is investing seriously enough in AI that I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. There've been some rumbles that it might be a bubble, and we can get into that. I think that maybe the current state of some of the AI ecosystem is going to be a bubble, but I don't think that the core technology is going to disappear. It's too useful. It's already integrated too tightly into too many businesses and corporate environments. But so that being said, people will get used to this. They'll get used to having it. They'll get used to trusting it, even when it doesn't always do a perfect job. And I mean, we look at our team members, our coworkers, and they don't always do a perfect job either. And sometimes mistakes get made, and people, AI, I don't think is quite as smart as our coworkers yet. In some ways it is. In some ways it knows more. It just might not be able to make the wisdom thing isn't there. It might not be able to make the right decisions with what it knows, but that's a yet thing. It's not an ever thing. But, we're getting to the point where it's like an AI driven car will make less dangerous decisions overall, but people don't trust it because it's not them and it takes their agency away. And so you might have a 0.001% of getting into a car accident today driving yourself. And you might have this 0.00001% if, Elon Musk's latest AI Tesla self-driving car was put at the wheel instead of you. But that fact that there's the 0.00001 there, it's like, it's not impossible. It can happen. So I don't trust it. And it's like, when you apply this against 1 million people, 100 people are going to die because they chose to drive themselves versus 1 if the AI drove them. But we don't like that. We'd rather drive ourselves, right? I'd rather die by my own stupidity behind the wheel than by AI making a mistake that killed me. And I mean, maybe in some marriages, that's why some spouses don't like letting their spouse drive, but all that.
Add that out. If we want to continue, we got to add that out, Josh.
Yeah, that one's that's anyway.
What could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. I guess I'm just trying to allude to this whole relationship that we have with our technology. The trust is going to grow over time and people will become more trustful. And if you look even at the difference in attitudes of people who were introduced to technology later in life versus those who, I was in grade, I think 7 when we first got the internet at our home. So, and like smartphones in college. And then you're seeing Gen Z who had a smartphone from the time they were 12. And my kids are alphas who they've lived with tablets since they were, 5. And like having to regulate screen time and all the things that's introduced that weren't really concerns back then. But the difference in those generations' relationship with their technology, how they trust it, how competent they are moving around it, it's changing. And so if technology is going in this direction where AI is becoming a centerpiece and it's getting better and better all the time, I think that it's only a matter of time before the user base kind of slides into this more trust and letting AI take care of more of what they do on their day to day. So yeah, I don't remember where we started with this line of questioning, but this is where we ended up. So there you go.
Josh, I'm allowed one oddball question and interview, and here it is. Our science fiction, we have computing, we have technology changes, we have pushback, we have large corporations and occasionally strange government decisions. Where are we? I know you're an ethical man. I've actually known you for a while, and you're a man who could be a mechanic or a computer guy or a washing repair person. The business itself would be ethical. But here's my question. How do you deal in an industry where the underlying pins may not be as ethical as you'd like, or do you just want to go to Maitland, Ontario and raise sheep?
That's an interesting question. There's a perception of what the technology industry is doing. And then there's what I think is the reality. And I think that the reality tends to be more nuanced and complex. And I think that, like to get into specifics, like what are the tech companies like myself doing with this AI infrastructure and how are we charging? What our goals, and it's when you take the fact that a lot of tier 1 stuff in logical processing jobs, so we're talking desk jobs mostly, are both very error prone by newbies that come into them and done effectively by IT now because they're simple. We're starting to see a transition where people are trying to code with AI to get AI to do some of this work, which reduces their investment in their low level starter trainee, tier one type of workers. And so, there's a real concern there that if we lived in a perfect society, you might see somehow these benefits of reducing the amount of hours that you need from your team members, not also reducing their pay and not eliminating entire jobs. And I mean, human nature is human nature. And when you're in a capitalist society like ours, business owners they have to, especially when they're a corporation, the people who are running these companies, they have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they maximize profit for shareholders. And, a lot of how that is done is by improving the customer experience. And sometimes it's by improving your team's experience. But every human that's making those decisions at the top is different. And so you'll see some of those types of attitudes of, we want to invest in this infrastructure to help make our people more effective so that we can reach more people, so that we can scale better. And you'll also see pretty regularly those people who are, we want to make bigger profit and reduce our costs. And now we can get away with laying off a lot of our lower level people. And so there's this kind of tug of war balancing act. And I don't see it as malicious. I see it as, I mean, sometimes it can be malicious and we get into a conversation about capitalism, socialism, blah, 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 right? Forgetting political leanings for a second. It's like people are fighting against starvation. They're fighting to take care of the people that they love and to try and feel prosperity in their little corner of the world. And that is true for everyone. And then some people have a bigger investment on, they want to make a positive impact in their community. And depending on how their attitude is towards their community and towards the world at large, outside of even their local community and their country, that you get people who are kind of more in the paranoid side, and maybe that's not fair, but the ones that don't have any patience for society, they think that it's all garbage and they're really only out for themselves and for their immediate community and or their immediate family. And when you take those attitudes and you project them onto businesses, project them onto the behaviors, you get all kinds of ranges of behaviors. And then when you project that into AI and how this AI is changing their ecosystem, you get, I think that it's predictable what we see now. And we're seeing, in IBM just laid off a ton of people. Microsoft laid off a ton of people this year. We're talking thousands. We're talking tens of thousands of jobs lost in North America. And in the last 2 weeks, Amazon has had 2 major outages in their Amazon Web Services because they assumed that AI could do everything that these lower tier people and some of their medium tier people could do. And they assumed wrong. And so it's, this kind of built-in knowledge base of the person who knows that this little server in the back is out of version because they have some of that critical software on it, and it needs to be kept on even when the rest of it is rebooted, or it's going to cause a major problem and the whole network is going to come down and then you're going to be hunting for it constantly. AI won't know about those skeletons buried in the closet. And so it's that inbuilt knowledge that is being lost. In a lot of cases, too, some of the decisions that AI is directing people to make are still not necessarily correct. And so you end up with, a major DNS failure taking out Amazon Web Services, a substantial portion of it, for hours. And the person that they laid off in favor of increasing their department's profitability, that just happens to have all the keys to that castle memorized and in their notes somewhere where AI doesn't see those notes, that person could have saved millions of damage in a day. So this is all happening, and the ethics question is interesting to me. And I do a little bit about where our society is going with this. I think that it's moving faster than any other technology transformation has moved. I'm not 100% sure that we're not going to elastic band back a little bit because of that exact example. Companies are finding out, oops, I laid off 9,000 people and I probably shouldn't have laid off 2,000 of those people for real, because it's going to hurt me. And then the other 7,000 is like my biggest concern is this balancing act right now. It's not my biggest, it's just another big concern. We still need senior technology people, and we still need senior bookkeepers and senior analysts and senior accountants, people with experience who know how things work. You got to be able to look at the output if you're using AI from that AI and assess it and be able to see, like I have a tier one coder and I have AI, and there are tasks that I can give either of them, and both of them will make mistakes. And if I can't be the QA for that open AI, then it's, like there's a big problem there, because you're going to end up implementing things, sending things out to your customers, sending taxes out to the government if you're an accountant, sending code out to your customer if you're a coder like we are, that breaks stuff, that costs real money, whether it be making financial mistakes, which is a real thing, or just productivity losses because we did something wrong or we didn't do something at all that we didn't realize we were supposed to do, and AI didn't realize we were supposed to do. So you need that oversight. How do people get good at things? By starting at sucking at those things, right? I learned to play piano during the pandemic, and my first year, yeah, I know, Bernie's laughing at me, just sitting alone in my office, not having anything to do, not being able to go out to the greater world. And I'm just like, hey, maybe a piano sounds good. It didn't sound good at all. It sounded pretty awful for about a year. I spent about a year kind of trying to get a better feel for it. And, I love playing the piano today. I've taught 2 of my kids how to play a little bit, and they're really enjoying it too. And I stuck with it because I didn't mind sucking for a while. It's not an eloquent way to put it, but I didn't mind being crappy at the thing I was working on for a while. Those tier one people, they're not going to be great at what they do coming in. They're going to be more expensive than an experienced person, but they become experienced people with experience. And so, Microsoft eliminating thousands of these people, they're going to get to a point where they're going to be looking for those intermediate and senior level people, and they can't find them because they can't develop that skill because they saved money early into the AI situation and cut them off. And so, yeah, and that's a real concern. And I, as a business owner, I wrestle with that. And it's one of the reasons why I feel strongly about continuing to invest in my junior people, because you can see the improvement over time, and you can see they're getting stronger with these things, and they can, they need to get the knowledge. Even if it's all going to be AI, they need to get the knowledge to ask the right questions to AI, and they're not going to even know what those questions are if they can't get the experience being bad at the thing first and learning from that so that they can be good at it.
So, Josh, if someone goes, I need that soulful, understanding IT person who can provide me all that TLC, help me with my AI, maybe my integrations, hardware that I'm going to need as opposed to hardware that, yeah, that's flashy, but no, you don't need it. It's overkill. How do they find you? How do they reach you?
We're online at sterlinggracetech.ca. You can email us at info@sterlinggracetech.ca. Give us a call. Our local number is 613-499-22. And we on the ground, we service, for on-site support when it's needed for hardware and servers. We service people anywhere from Cornwall, Brockville, Kingston, Ottawa, and kind of that circumference. And we can go outside of that a little bit with a little bit of custom pricing around our travel. And then we remote support people all over the place. And then for development, for building websites, for building e-commerce sites, for building AI-enabled solutions, we can work remotely with anybody. We have customers throughout North America. And so, yeah, we'd be happy to have your listeners as our happy guests for learning a little bit, maybe just to have a chat about where their tech position is, their ideas, what their dreams are, how they see their business scaling, and a little bit of advice maybe that, doesn't necessarily have to come and become a big engagement, all the way up to, be one of our customers and You know, I have an emotional investment in making sure my customers succeed, and I want to make sure that their computers, that their servers won't let them down, and get out of their way so that they don't feel the pain of having these computers to manage, because that pain is managed. And I also want to make sure that our customers have an accessible partner, not just a set it and forget it vendor, but somebody who makes their lives easier. I insist that we have that attitude with our clients, that our job is not to be frustrated with them when they do something that maybe they shouldn't have done, when they execute those unsafe browsing habits. It's to just be there to help them get out of it, to be their problem solver, to be their confidant, that they know that they can bring their oopsies to us and we can just get them out of the hole they dug themselves. Right. And so that's what we're all about.
Josh, I want to say thank you so much for your time today, and my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. Now, just for clarification, I do utilize Josh's services, and once upon a time, something with DNS. And if you don't know what that means, it's a wonderful feature about websites. And for some reason, I couldn't get a website up and running. Josh resolved it. It wasn't me and my handiwork that caused the failure. It was actually at the company that provided the URL issue. So it got sorted out. So that's the type of support you get from Josh. And it was a quick turnaround response, etc. So he's there.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVISIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motive8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.